Hi there. This is another video of going through one of the updates. It's going to be the October 16th CPC update, and on the screen right now you'll see the update document, which is talking about the multiple things that have changed. The two that I'm going to focus on the most is the PLC change and the Troubleshooter form. But very quickly here, a couple of changes. One, to the script editor, when you press the Control F key now, if your cursor is positioned on a specific entry, and I'll show you how that works. So if I go to a script, PLC logic script for instance here, and if I'm positioned on a specific word, so here if I just click on header set point, press Control F, it will automatically put that in the find window. You know, prior to this, when you did that, it would leave the find window blank. So that's a nice simple feature that's been added. The other change that you'll see here, a small change but useful, is any screen that you're on, at the very bottom of the screen, it'll indicate what the name of the screen is. This was not visible before, and you had to actually go into screen design to tell which screen you're on. So that's a new change. On the PLC, we have added the ability to transfer strings in compact logics, and so the way that works is within your controller tags on compact logics, what you want to do is create a string array, one for reading and one for writing. So I've created a string, an array called text inputs and text outputs. So inputs would be if you want to read text into CPC, and text outputs would be if you want to write from CPC into the PLC. And these are defined as string data type, and then in this case I've created some strings which are basically 10 elements large. Now if I expose that, what you'll see is each of those string elements represent a string data type, and if we expose even further, you'll notice that there's two elements to that data structure. One is a length, which is the length of the string, and the other is the actual string data. And if we expose that further, you'll see that there's up to 82 characters that can be put in a string. Okay, so if I were to go on monitor tags, for instance, and here we've got in text inputs, you'll see I've got a string in text in element 0 and element 1 and element 2, and if I expose that, you'll see that the length is 5 for the string Mason, and each data point is an individual character of each one. So even though there's 82 characters maximum, it's only using 5 of those. Okay, so once you define your text input and outputs, you can also then provide individual data types which are aliases to those, and that way I'm going to transfer, for instance, recipe name, run end time, and run start time to the PLC. And so so that's how you set up the actual control logics. And then within CPC, you basically on your compact logics object, which is, I've got one right here, you'll see that there's a text inputs and a text outputs transfer object, and each of these is defined as a string data type, okay, which is one of the pull down items. And when you build that, when you do a build of that transfer object, it will create 10 text input tag objects below it. Okay, but on the text outputs, because normally when we're transferring text from CPC over to the PLC, we don't want to actually create a physical output for it. We're going to use the specific tag object path property here. So the way that this works is this is let's say transferring 10 strings over, and each string would be one of these under children objects, and so what the system will do before sending out, it will get the actual value from the path the object property that you target. So here I'm pulling the recipe name from the recipe processor, and I'm pulling a variable called run start time and a run end time. And so that's really all that you need to do to transfer information over. The other thing that you want to be aware of is you don't want to have the transfer object in your normal tasker, because basically what it's going to do, communicating strings to the PLC is a very slow process, and so it's going to create a large hang if you're writing every 1/10 of a second over to the PLC. So normally what you want to do is either put these things on an interval, like a 10 or 15, 20-second interval, or do them when you really want to send them, for instance at the end of a run or the beginning of a run. There are different cases, and you can also split these output strings into smaller chunks, and that way that'll speed things up as well. So that's the string capabilities right there. Okay, and let's see, and the next thing, which is kind of cool, is we have the troubleshooter form. Now there's always been a troubleshooting form in the object editor, but it's been sort of unused because it hasn't worked very well. So usually it's a right click and you see it right here, troubleshooter right there. Okay. Well, from the main screen too, you can select troubleshooter, and I'm just gonna check something here. Okay. So when you do a troubleshooter form, troubleshooter is basically a watch window where you can set up certain things you want to watch, and it'll come up and display those, and that way you don't have to create a custom screen to show specific things when you're testing. So if I'm on the manual screen, for instance, and I'm curious about watching multiple items, or I'm on another screen, I want to watch multiple items, I can create a troubleshooter form. So I'm going to open the troubleshooter form, and what's going to happen is it's going to bring up the blank form. It's going to call it troubleshooter form number 1, and what it actually did there is it not only created that, but under client default it creates a troubleshooter object, and it stores information about the groups and the different form properties in that object. So that's automatically created when you bring up the form, and you'll see that there's 2 tabs, one that says group 1, one that it's called event messages. Event messages are basically, you can create custom triggers and collect information on specific values. I'm going to start by just typing in .autoclave.inputs.artc \value, okay? And immediately it starts displaying it at every 1 second. I'm going to add another watch item, .inputs.pressure \value, and another one. We'll grab outputs.air control \main set point. Okay, so you can basically add as many watch items to that group as you want. You can also rename that group. I'm going to right click on that and select rename. I'm going to call that standard variable, standard group. Okay, and here it is renamed. Now what this does now is this is collecting information at this 1 second, or monitoring that information, and if I go from screen to screen, that troubleshooter will remain up. Okay. Also, if I close the troubleshooter and bring it back up, it'll retain that information, and that's because this is all stored in that troubleshooter object. I can also create different groups within the same troubleshooter form. So if I add a new group, I can call that outputs, for instance. And maybe here I'm interested in .autoclave.outputs.fan \output value. Okay. And maybe I'm also interested in .autoclave inputs.fanon \value. Okay. And so here, here's, and let's say autoclave.outputs.air control \output value. I'll add that. So here we are displaying information, and the original standard group is there as well as the new group. Now, the nice thing about this is it can be used for monitoring, but you can also created as a sort of an event tracker. So let's say anytime the fan output goes to true, I want to record that. And anytime the fan on goes to true, I want to record that. And anytime the air control is greater than 50%, I want to record that. Okay. So by entering the criterion, it basically creates a running event trapper. Okay. So now, if I go to the manual screen, for instance, and I turn off the autoclave fan, you'll see that it'll show the true and the false conditions being met. So here it says that air control is now less than 50%. Fan on is false, which is different than true, and fan output is false. And if I turn on the fan, you'll see we'll get a true condition being met. And these are basically, every time this result here changes from true to false, it's going to issue a specific message. Now, I can clear these messages at any time, and it'll restart or redo it. It's basically scanning all the groups at the same time. So whichever group is entered, it's going to be logging that to the event messages. The one thing to note is when I close this form, it is no longer active, and therefore it is not monitoring anymore. Okay, so if I bring up the troubleshooter again, the messages basically brings up a brand new form. Okay, now there might be cases where you want to close the form and have it still be active. Let's say I want to set up certain inputs, I want to monitor them, and then I just want to close the form for an hour and then come back to that form and identify when certain conditions occurred. The way you do that is by clicking the Remain Active After Close checkbox here. And now when you close it, so here I've got a bunch of messages. Now if I close it and I bring it back up, it'll be the existing one. Okay, so it isn't going to reset itself, basically. Okay. Now the other nice thing about it is the system will support multiple troubleshooting forms. So I can bring up another troubleshooting form, right-click, select Troubleshooter, and now I've got troubleshooter form number 2. Okay, so I can create different troubleshooters all the way up to 4. 4 of these can be loaded during the system, and so depending on how you want it to work, if you want, you can certainly use different groups up here as tabs, or you can actually just create different troubleshooting windows, and that gives you the ability of seeing different things at different times, and those will remain active as you move throughout the system. Okay. Now another nice thing about the troubleshooter is because all this information is now stored in an object, which is here underneath the client default object, troubleshooter. So this is storing all of those groups as well as all of the positions on the screen. I can right click and save this object to the disk, to your one of your folders, and you can import that into a new CPC configuration. So you can set up a bunch of different groups and a bunch of different standard watch items and watch groups, and not have to redo it every time you have a new configuration. You can just load in a troubleshooter, and then you've got all those things available to you. Okay, so I think that's about it on the new changes. So anyway, have fun with that. It'll be uploaded on October 16th, and good luck. Have a good one. Bye.